for everything that's been provided for this city, the people that protect it and the people that make it go on a day-to-day basis. Lord, I ask you, Lord, just keep them safe. And under your grace, God, I ask you, Lord, just to be with the meeting tonight. Let all the things be discussed be for the benefit of the city and those that are in it. God, I ask you, Lord, just to be with our country and our leaders. And God, I ask you, Lord, just to let our country just continue to thrive and come together like no other time, God. Lord, I ask you to be with us in this meeting. In your name I pray. Amen.
Okay, if you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lilly. Here. Mizell. Rustin. King. Here. Phillips.
Here.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here, and we have a quorum. So I'll let you guys, see if I can't get that thing off of the screen there. You don't need to be seeing that. I don't know. I guess I don't control that. Yeah, so I can't on my screen. She's got the, yeah, if you can minimize that. There we go. So I'm going to let everybody take a look at the agenda. I won't read it all. Okay, first item is approval of the consent agenda, which is the minutes of our 2 February meeting and approval of our 8 February council work session. Are there any additions or correction to the minutes of those meetings? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
In a second. And if there are no corrections, then the agenda is accepted. Okay, we'll start with our departmental status overview. So police is first. Sasha's up today. So you get to come up front, Sasha. Okay? And I'm trying to get you close to the microphone if I can. You don't have to stand right here if you don't want to, but just speak up because you're live.
Well, good evening, everybody. Pardon me if this is done awkwardly. For safety, I guess that's where we're starting. We currently have no on-the-job injuries at this time. That's a good thing. We're currently on course with our 2021 budget. Well, we have filled personnel. We have filled our open positions, and that's a good thing. On our vehicles, they're kind of on back order right now. We're hoping to get those at the end of this month, and ready to go, and hopefully on the road by March or April. Equipment, we've issued all our new equipment out, all of our equipment out to our 2 officers that are coming in. Training for 2021 A-Post hours, CPR and AED training is complete. We will now concentrate on tactical and community policing training, which we'll be getting those hours in. We've already started this month. Issues and concerns. Parking on the streets of Springs Crossing is starting to become an issue. And I believe we sent out letters to all the residents asking them to help us with this problem, make sure they park in their driveways. And the highlights and opportunities. Received, like I said, some applications and interviewed several people to fill those 2 applicant jobs. Those 2 have been hired. One is moving in from a part-time position to a full-time position. One is standing in the back with us tonight, Alexis Rittenhouse, and we welcome her. Just to give you a little background on her real quick. Alexis comes to us from Dalton Police Department in Dalton, Georgia. She has a criminal justice degree. She has 5 years experience, and she's a resident of the city of Columbia. We welcome her aboard. As well as highlights, we were able to also donate one of our police cruisers to CTEC, School of Technology. They were very, very, very much so humble and in need of that cruiser. And so, therefore, we were able to do that. And we were happy to do that. And that's it.
Any questions for Lieutenant Knighton?
Sasha, what kind of vehicles? I'm sorry, Lieutenant Knighton.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Correct myself in here. What type of vehicles did we settle on?
Going for the Dodge, the Durango. Got
So-
2 of those.
So we'd like to welcome our new officer. I'd just like to say that we have some very close friends from Dalton, Georgia, who we were in the Air Force with, Goose and Debbie Gossett. They, at one point in time, were custodians of UGA, the Georgia Bulldog. Goose is a big Georgia Bulldog, so welcome. Dalton's a nice place. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Thank you.
All right, admin.
Let's see, safety, we have, no reports for safety issues. We continue to clean and sanitize due to COVID. January 2021 budget for, admin, revenues are up and expenses are down, which
Okay.
is both good.
So we're gonna take a little detailed look here.
And then, this is overall for general fund. Our budget was, year-to-date should be 1.6. Our revenues are actually 1.8, so we're up in revenues, which is very good. Expenses should be 1.3, and we're down at 1.1, so it is good that expenses are also down.
So, quick comment on that. I know you guys can't see those numbers, but if you take a look at our year-to-date actual on our surplus funding there, it says we have a $673,000 surplus. I don't want folks to get too giddy about that yet, but that is good. And I want to congratulate all the department heads as well as the admin staff on how well everybody's been managing their budget. You can see in the blue column there at the bottom highlighted in yellow, we had forecasted or we had budgeted to end the year with a $635,000 budget. And we are already at a surplus of $673,000. Now, I'm not certain that that's going to continue to grow like that. We had some, as is often the case, we had some spikes in revenue in the month of January, and that will probably tamp itself back down, but still, overall, it's a good job. And this is the total picture. So basically, to make it simple, we stack to these bars. This is all of the city's funds. I'm sorry, Charlene, I'm stealing your thunder here. But basically, got all the funds: sewer fund, court fund, cemetery fund, general fund. Basically, the blue is the general fund at the bottom. Cemetery, you can hardly see because it's quite small. And then the court is in the gray, and the sewer is in the gold or the yellow. And what's good about this, if the left side is the revenue, so the revenue is above the budget, the right side is expense, and the actual is below the budget. So that's perfect. That's where you want to be.
Charlene, I have one question. Is that on, just talking about the revenues, is that pretty much on track for previous years? Is that something we hadn't seen, revenues being that high at this point? Just out of curiosity.
Well, in January is when most of our business license
license.
starts coming in, and our property tax usually starts coming in December, January, February. Business license start coming in December, January, February, March. So this is kind of our peak season for a lot of our
So
revenues.
throughout the rest of the year, we should see a steady revenue stream, steady and not any big jumps type
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
And the way the budget was spread, it was kind of peanut butter spread. It didn't take into consideration those spikes. Okay.
Let's see, our staffing, we are fully staffed with our 3 full-time and 1 part-time position. Facilities, City Hall, does need to be updated, but no repairs are needed at this time. And for training, myself and Assistant City Clerk will be attending certified clerk training in 2 weeks in Montgomery. That's all we have for admin.
Okay. Any questions for the city clerk?
Thank you.
Public Works, Alan.
Currently, right now, we have no injuries in our departments at this time and stuff. Our budget's still running currently on budget and everything. Staffing, back down 3 people again. I had one come in Mondays, you know of it, walked out and quit, said he's going home, so he's no longer with us. Hunting 2 laborers and 1 with CDL license. Our vehicles is still in yellow, but they're getting there. They're still working on big truck that we need and everything, doing some of the stuff that we need done to it to suit our needs and everything. Our equipment, you know, we still got some old outdated equipment that we eventually gonna have to do something with and everything, as far as the backhoe and stuff. It's a 95 model and everything. Training, our training should have been in Green, but we didn't get that changed and everything. It's fine. Facilities, y'all steady working on that, trying to get that worked out. And highlighting opportunity, last time we received all of our COVID stuff, we're still working on the paving project. All the bulbs in the baseball and the softball fields that were out has been replaced. Bleachers that got messed up during the storm for the baseball complex has been ordered to be replaced. All that's being paid through with the insurance, where the insurance covered those. Issues and concerns, is, like I said, we're still trying to keep a full staff, trying to work like on the road paving and stuff in the facilities, and then we've got some electrical problems that one of our softball fields, probably gonna have to get an electrician to come up there, and I've done everything I know to do to them. The bulb, every light on the pole except these 3 bulbs is coming on, and see the ballast is burned out in it, or we've got problems. Other than that, everything's running fine. Besides just being cold. It's cold.
And it's cold.
Especially the ones that's hanging on the back of the truck.
So the sanitation truck, when do you anticipate
I
that's gonna
hope
be?
within the next 2 weeks.
Any other questions for Alan?
That truck, Al, that's what, we building that, what you need specs wise, right?
Yeah, he's going back, the steps is on the back of this, and we need ours to be on the side and everything where the driver can see the person that's riding the back of the truck, and they had to replace the mud flaps on it and got it cleaned it up, and they put a new camera system on it for us and everything.
Backhoe camera.
Everything that they found wrong with it, they're fixing it for us.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, for the court, we don't have a court representative here tonight. Basically, I told them they didn't need to come because there's not a lot going on at the court, but you can see on the highlights and opportunity. And I don't want to take that away. I mean, they're doing their job and they're busy, but I mean, there are no unusual things going on. Next court's on the 23rd of February, and basically, budget-wise, they're another one of the departments that revenues are up, expenses are down. They have developed a virtual hearings system at the jail, which is a good thing, especially during COVID. And just from a convenience point of view of having to get out and go to the jail to have a hearing at all hours of the day and night. And we also have the kiosks out here to where we can do touchless payments of fees and fines and things of that nature. So I think everything's going well with the court. That's about all I know, so hopefully no questions.
Are a lot of people using the kiosk, you know, Charlotte?
I'm not sure if they're coming in and using that or if they still go and see Bree at the desk, but it is out front and available for them.
So the kiosk is there, and here's what I think's happening. Kiosk is there, they walk up, and Bree and Andrea just help them. Yeah. And what I would have mentioned today is we should encourage them to use the kiosk because we would like to go contactless if at all possible. Any other comments, questions? Okay, Brad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
I got you. So we've got on the phone here, our bond counsel, who is gonna talk to us a little bit about some of the legal and administrative aspects and things that we have to do to refinance the debt. But I'm gonna start with, and by the way, Brad, do you have these charts? Do you see the charts? Did you dial into the Zoom?
I can, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know because.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to give you a quick overview, things that we've talked about before, and then I'm going to turn it over to Brad. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to refinance our existing debt to take care of very low interest rates and reduce our debt service. So what we're doing is we're taking that debt, and essentially it's a 2018 bond that was issued for the Old Mill Square development, and it's another 2018 bond that was refinancing existing city debt. Those two bonds. We actually have a third bond that was issued in 2020, and just because of the timing, et cetera, we weren't really able, and we weren't going to get the benefit out of the refinancing for that. So we'll get a reduced interest rate. We anticipate saving hopefully about $40,000 a year, about almost $1.2 million over the life of the loan. And then also, there's some additional or excess funds that were left from the Old Mill Square development, and hopefully we'll be able to repurpose those funds and be able to use them for other needs in the city. We had our underwriter, which is Fraser Lanier, did an analysis of our debt and interest rate and forecast and came up with these numbers of $40,000. I asked our city accountants to validate those numbers, which they did. That's Deloach and Company. And so they reviewed the numbers and they concurred with this. By the time this is closed, depending upon interest rates, we could save a little more, we could save a little less. Another reason why we're going through this process today of adopting an ordinance to allow us to do this thing so that we can move forward with the process in a timely fashion, take advantage of the favorable interest rates. And then the bond counsel also, and he's going to talk to you about this, part of this is an Amendment 772 validation, which is something that's required by law, and I'm not going to try to explain that. I'm going to allow Brad Cherry, who is our bond counsel from Maynard, Cooper, and Gale. Now, this is just a visual bar chart of basically those two pieces of debt that shows, actually what the payments would be, the debt service would be for those, for the period 2021 to 2024, and then the payments go up in the out years 2025 to 2048. So the gray bar is what we would have to pay if we didn't refinance. The blue bar represents what we will pay and what we estimate our savings is going to be, and that's the $40,000 a year. So what I've got here now is the text of the ordinance. I know you guys can't read all that. It's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad Cherry. Hopefully you'll be able to hear him, and he's going to try to explain to us what's going on. So Brad, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. And I apologize, I'm not there with you. I am up in Birmingham, and we had a little bit more snow here, and I was just a little concerned about it thawing and then refreezing and driving back. So I apologize, but I will see you again hopefully soon. But Mayor, just to reiterate what you've said, we're looking at doing some refinances of some 2018 indebtedness, one being some debt related to the Old Mill Square project, and the other debt just being a general city general obligation warrant. To note, those general obligation warrants will not require validation. So, we're just under the typical process with those. But what we're kind of dealing with tonight is the debt for the Old Mill Square project, which we will validate, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But in a sense, what we're doing, we're simply like you would refinance your mortgage on your house. We're taking advantage of lower interest rates. We are not borrowing any additional funds to do other projects. We're simply lowering the city's debt service payments on a year-to-year basis. To do that, though, we've got to do a number of steps. In 2018, we issued the Old Mill Square, or the city issued that debt under the authority of Amendment 772. And that's an economic development amendment, and it lets the city take certain actions that it otherwise wouldn't be permitted to do. Part of that, though, is that it gives the city a special basket of indebtedness. It's a special debt limit that's equal to 50% of the assessed value of the property in the city. And when I was discussing this with the mayor, is Normally a city and municipality in the state of Alabama can borrow funds up to 20% of their assessed value of property. But with economic development projects, the city can borrow additional funds up to 50% of their assessed value. And so we qualified this project in 2018 under Amendment 772 to give the city some benefit of the special economic development debt limit. Part of that, of doing it under Amendment 772, is we've got to validate this action. So what we do is we essentially file a declaratory judgment in circuit court in Shelby County, and we have the court to rule on the validity of the bond issue. And we did that same process in 2018. And because we're refinancing it here, we want to take advantage of all the same benefits that 772 gives the city. So we want to go back through that process. So we're going to validate these bonds again. Now, the only downside to that is it takes a little bit more time. So once we get this approved, we'll get all of our documents in order and we'll get our validation filed, and then we'll have our court hearing. We'll hopefully receive a favorable ruling from the Shelby County Circuit Court. And after that ruling and after a period of an appeal period, there's about a 14-day appeal period, the city can price these bonds and lock in the interest rates. So it's just really a timing issue. And so this is really the first step in that process. Once we get this approval, we can kind of proceed to the next steps. So really the exact same legal process that we used in 2018. Nothing is new. We are not changing fundamentally any of the substance of the underlying documents. It's keeping it as is. The only thing we're doing is lowering the city's debt service payments on a year-to-year basis. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are. The ordinance, just to highlight a couple of things in the ordinance, is
Real quick.
this ordinance authorizes. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you need me to, because we've got this thing covering, I think, 4 different charts. If you need me to switch from one chart to the next, just let me know.
I will, Mayor. So, Council and Mayor, the ordinance authorizes the debt preliminarily, and I say preliminarily because the conditions that the ordinance places on the issuance are that we validate the bond issue, and number 2, we have to achieve certain parameters. An amount, we cannot issue more than a certain amount of debt. We have to achieve, and that amount is $9,250,000. And the reason why it's a little bit more than the principal amount of the bonds is the principal amount of the bonds is $8,450,000. Underwriters sometimes will price bonds with a premium or a discount, so it'll change the amount that's borrowed, but the function is that it increases or decreases the interest rate. Importantly, though, we've also set a savings threshold. So the city has to achieve at least a 3% net present value savings. And that 3% number is typically what you will see as a threshold, a minimum threshold for doing a refinance. A city would not want to refinance its debt unless it could achieve at least 3% of savings. Here, I think all expectations is that the city will vastly exceed that 3% savings threshold, but we've set that as the minimum. The mayor then, the council preliminarily approves this. We validate the warrants. The mayor has to be satisfied with the pricing, and also the council. We will come back to the council. We cannot issue the debt unless the council is also satisfied with the pricing of the warrants, and that includes the interest rates, the principal amount, and the savings threshold. So really today, the point of this ordinance is just the initial first step. We'll be back to the council to have them approve everything once we price the bonds and we have this validated. So I'll stop there, Mayor, and if you the extent you have any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Council, anyone have a question for Brad?
I got a question, Brad, it's Ricky Rustin.
Yeah, hey, Ricky.
How long does this process, in perfect world, how long will the process take?
Well, I'll tell you what the law says. So the validation statute, what it says is once we file the validation, the judge enters an order setting a hearing date, and that hearing date by law has to be not less than 20 days nor more than 40 days from the date he enters his order. And then we've got, after we have our hearing date, there's a 2-week appeal period. So you're really looking at probably about 7 weeks, really, for this whole process to play out. Now, I will say Shelby County, it's very efficient, their court system, and we've certainly been in their courts doing validations on a frequent basis, and they're very good. Certain counties aren't as quick, but Shelby County is very quick. And I think we can get a hearing sooner rather than later and try to get it wrapped up as quickly as we can, because, time is of the essence. You just never know where interest rates will go. So you always want to try to get the validation done as quickly as possible and put the city into a position where it can price the debt as quickly as possible and lock in interest rates as soon as possible. So we'll definitely expedite the process.
And if I may, Brad, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think based upon my conversations with David Langham and the folks at the underwriter, once this 772 process is complete, we're not obligated at that point in time to lock in an interest rate. We would have the ability,
Oh, that's right.
we would have the ability to lock it in, but if for some reason we anticipated, based on what was going on with the markets, the bond markets, and we thought there was going to be a more favorable move in interest rates, we could delay if we wanted to.
That is absolutely right, Mayor. So this evening, you're simply, beginning kind of the initial step. Once you have the bonds validated, you're not locked in to that point either. You can look at the interest rates in the market and determine whether or not you want to proceed or not. And, you are not locked in until we come back to the council and have them to actually approve the interest rates. So, there is a limiter on the process. The council is really that, function. It will have to be satisfied that the savings thresholds, and you as well, Mayor, are what you want them to be. And, even before you get to that point, you'll know kind of where the market is, and, you'll be able to say, hey, let's proceed. Let's go price these. Once we kind of finish the preliminary steps to this and we're done with that, then you'll have some flexibility on when you actually get into the market and timing interest rates, because interest rates in the bond market are fairly volatile. They can move from day to day, from week to week. Some of it is just luck, frankly. But once you have accomplished kind of the threshold points of getting it validated, getting it approved, then you're at the point of being able to kind of time the market when you think you can get the most favorable interest rate and save the city the most money.
Any other questions or comments for Brad? Brad, do you have any more questions or comments?
I do not, Mayor. I do not.
Okay, so what we would like to do so that we can move forward expeditiously with this process is we would like to be able to adopt this ordinance tonight, this evening. And normally it would require 2 readings. There is some concurrent activity that's going on with the Cultural Cooperative District Board. That's basically been done virtually up to this point in time, and they eventually are going to have to adopt a resolution, but basically we've done it verbally and virtually. So what I'd like to ask of the council is I would like for a motion to suspend the rules so that we could adopt this resolution tonight with a single reading, or adopt this ordinance, excuse me. So is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion that we adopt the suspended rules to consider for ordinance 022104, approving issuance of revenue bonds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Good. And all in favor, let's do a show of hands, please. Okay, show that it's unanimous to suspend the rules. So now, and I believe that was a motion to adopt the ordinance concurrently. Was that? Did you phrase that as a suspend the rules?
This is to suspend the rules.
Okay, all right. So now I need a motion then to adopt the
To adopt
ordinance.
the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 022104, it's approving issuance of revenue bonds.
Show of hands. Okay, also unanimous. All right, we got through that. So Brad, if you don't mind, we have a public comment section at the end, so just in case there's any questions from the public, could you hang on for a bit?
I'm happy to, Mayor, absolutely.
I'll put you back on mute.
Okay, very good.
Okay, board reports. I think the only board that has met since our last meeting is the Planning Commission, and I think our representative from the Planning Commission is Charlene. So can you share with us all the great things the Planning Commission's been doing?
We are still working on updating our planning and zoning ordinance. We have another work session next week to work on that. We had a public hearing at the Planning Commission for the property next door, Randy and Susie Clements. They are rezoning that property. That was approved by Planning and Zoning, so an ad's gonna run in the paper for 2 weeks, and then on the 16th of March, we will have the public hearing here. If it passes, then that property will be rezoned. And I think those were the only two things that we had on our planning and zoning agenda.
What's it currently zoned?
It is currently R2, and it's gonna be rezoned to B2. So it's going from residential to business.
Any other questions of regarding the Planning Commission? Okay, is there any old business that anyone on the council would like to bring up for discussion? Any new business? Okay, if there's no other business, mayor's report. Last week went down to Montgomery. They had the Alabama League of Municipalities Advocacy Day. For me, as a new mayor, it was an interesting session. It was done a bit differently, as I understand it, from previous advocacy days, where there was a lot of elbow rubbing between councils and mayors with state legislators because of COVID. It was pretty much a one-way type of communication with presentations by the cabinet and representatives from the Senate and the House of Representatives. I think most of you have probably, I didn't bring a list of all the significant legislation, but I'm sure many of you have been following it in the newspapers. Obviously, one of the big one is the gambling. Another one has to do with the tax exemption of the COVID benefits from state income taxes. There's a whole host of other significant issues. One of them has to do with police jurisdiction, which is legislation that apparently they've tried time after time after time, and it's the general consensus of the League of Municipalities, and I know I've discussed it with some members of the council, and I've discussed it with our state representatives, that we don't want that legislation relative to the police jurisdiction to change, not so much from a police jurisdiction point of view, but things that are tied to it, such as planning and zoning in particular, because what it would potentially allow doing is developers to develop property right on the outskirts, right on the fringes of your city limits, but within your police jurisdiction, and it wouldn't necessarily be compliant with code. And so if you then subsequently annexed those developments, whether they were residential or business or otherwise, you may end up having all kinds of issues with utilities like water and sewer and things of that nature. So, so that was one of the significant ones. So it was a good meeting as far as I was concerned. I did meet and spend some time talking to the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture. She connected us with a person in her organization for an initiative that they call Sweet Grown Alabama. It's a farm-to-table initiative, and Allie's going to be hopefully communicating with those people soon. And what we'd like to do is be able, maybe at some of our city events, is maybe have a Main Street, farm-to-table type dinner, and tie it in with maybe our trade day, and when we have people bringing in the fresh vegetables and stuff like that. And then also I explained to the Deputy Commissioner about our upcoming Cowboy Day. Obviously, the Cattlemen's Association is part of the agriculture in our state, and so we'd certainly like to see what kind of publicity, benefit, advocacy, whatever, that we might be able to get from the agriculture department. On the 10th, I attended the Shelby County Mayors Association luncheon. I'm going to steal a little bit more thunder from Allie because she's going to talk about Cowboy Day later on, and so now I'm going to steal a little bit of thunder about COVID vaccines. And we had a lengthy discussion about COVID vaccines at the Mayors Association luncheon. And Chad Scroggins, who's our county manager, was there. And Chad has really been a go-getter and instrumental in helping us get our fair share of COVID vaccinations in Columbiana. And I had also been chewing on his ear, in Shelby County. And I've been chewing on his ear and saying, hey, I wanted to get them in Columbiana. And so tomorrow, we are going to administer 1,000 COVID vaccines at the Old Mill Square. On the 24th, we're going to administer another 500. And we are anticipating 2 dates in March, hopefully, if the vaccines are available. So I really want to thank Chad for all the hard work that he's been doing to get those vaccines here in the county, as well as get them here in Columbiana. And we engaged our senior center. They reached out, didn't wait for people to call in. The senior center actually reached out to our senior population and was able to sign up 300 of our local seniors for the event tomorrow, and I guess on the 24th as well. And they filled up quick, all those. And of course, it was for the entire county. It wasn't just for Columbiana, but hopefully, we got a good bit of those. Following the Mayors Association luncheon, we had an industrial development forum. And again, as a new mayor, I got a lot out of that. I think those from the council and from the city administration, they probably got tired of me asking all the questions, but it was because I was trying to learn about industrial development, because I'm really pushing for economic development for Columbiana. And so really want to thank 58 Inc. for putting on the retail development forum that we had here in Columbiana in January, the industrial development forum that we had in Calera, and in Helena in March, we will have another forum where we will be dealing with various partners around the state, which are various entities that can help municipalities with their economic development efforts. On the 12th, the Chief Bowers and I, Chief of Police Bowers, went to visit a group of concerned citizens concerned with things like conditions in their community, crime, and a whole host of other things. I thought it was a very good meeting. I encourage all of our citizens to become engaged in what's going on in your communities. One of the things we talked about is community watch. That's something I'd like to get sort of re-energized in Columbiana and help with that. Tomorrow, today's the 16th. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with the head of Opportunity Alabama from the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs, a gentleman named Alex Flaxbart. He's the guru. He's the expert on economic opportunity zones. And I know many of you know that Columbiana is in one of the state's economic opportunity zones, and I am trying to learn what all we can do to leverage that economic opportunity zone legislation to get business investment in Columbiana to help us with our growth initiative. As I've dug into this stuff and learned, I always thought that it was just Columbiana was the opportunity zone, but it's actually an area in Shelby County, and Columbiana is only in about 40% approximately, maybe a little less, of the opportunity zone is Columbiana. And it's not all of Columbiana. There are portions of Columbiana that are not in the opportunity zone that I would like to see in the opportunity zone, and I hope to have that conversation. Now, the reality is that is federal legislation, and in order to change that opportunity zone, it will literally take an act of Congress. But I'm okay to tilt at that windmill and try to make that happen. But in the meantime, I really just want to learn how to use what we have. Our congressman for our district, Representative Gary Palmer, is hosting a luncheon on the 18th for all of the mayors in his district, and I'll be at that. And then on the 24th, the Chamber of Commerce is hosting a virtual State of Our Communities presentation, and so I sort of have to get my ducks together to present about 7 or 8 minutes worth of stuff at that virtual presentation, and I assume anybody would be able to see that presentation verbally. So that's about what's been going on with me lately. Any questions or comments from the council?
Yes, sir, Mayor, the Concerned Citizens, meeting, I'm kind of concerned about that. When did that, I see it took place February the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
Were there, members, citizens, or people from each district that was there, or?
Yeah, so I received a call from a lady in the area, and she invited several others to come to her home. And so they wanted to share with me some of their concerns about the conditions of the property in that particular community, and storm damage. I haven't followed up with you about that, Alan. So there's some areas where, like, there's a road sign down and some cleanup. Storm drainage, which we have lots of those kind of problems around Columbiana. And then crime and drug use, and so I invited Chief Bowers to go with it. I thought it was a very good meeting, and I promised to follow up with those folks and get back with them on that.
Would there be any other meetings that we might be able to go to?
Participate in? I will. What I'll do the next time one of these folks calls me, I will make sure to invite the council to go. So that's a good point. All right.
I'd just like to say thank you again to Casey and Allie and Charlene and Andrea for calling, because they called Mother, and I appreciate them calling for the vaccine.
Yeah.
Is that a two-shot deal, so that means if 1,000 go tomorrow, then the next 2 are the second shots, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's 2 shots. It's the Moderna vaccination, so it's 2 shots.
So as I understand it, if we get more vaccinations in March, and I think they'll be on the same dates like the 17th and the 24th of March, but approximately those same days. And if we get them, the plan is for 500. And I say if, is because it's been kind of spotty. So right now, we believe that we're gonna get those vaccinations, but it depends upon what the state gets from the federal government, and that's been kind of spotty. But it's my understanding that the folks who will go for their vaccinations tomorrow will go back for their second one at that time, even though we're getting 500 new ones. So. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I stole some of your thunder here, Ally, I apologize.
All right, so this week, tomorrow is the COVID vaccination clinic at Old Mill Square Park, from 8 to 4, and there is another one next Thursday, the 24th, from 8 to 4. So the clinic tomorrow is 1,000 shots, and then the clinic Thursday is 500. So that's this week. Next week, is the rodeo on Friday night, the 26th. That will be at 7 o'clock, and you can order tickets online. I think they're $20, I think, for adults, and then 10 for kids. And then on Saturday, the 27th, is the rodeo, and those times are at 1 and 7 o'clock. And then next Saturday is Cowboy Day. Cowboy Day will start at 9 at Old Mill Square Park, and we will wrap up about 4 o'clock. This year, the parade will be at noon and not at 2 o'clock as it usually is, because we don't want to interfere with the rodeo, and we have lots of cattlemen who like to ride in the parade. So the parade will be at noon. At 10, Ella Langley will sing. At 1:30, Cam Spinks. And so there'll be vendors and food trucks, cowboy skits, a cornhole tournament, and a hobby horse tournament for any adult or child who wants to participate in the hobby horse tournament. And then coming up, March 2nd is the Bluegrass Jam at the Shelby County Arts Council. March 5th is the Red Hot Rodeo Band at the SCAC. March 12th is Ladies Night in Columbiana on Main Street. Businesses will offer specials that night. And then March 13th will be a super busy day. It's Tea with the Easter Bunny at the Grand Hall at Old Mill Square. You can buy those tickets at City Hall, at the corner shops, or at the farm company. And that will be a Columbiana Main Street fundraiser. And then the Alabama 4-H Center is doing their music festival on the 13th, and that's an all-day event on March 13th.
Questions, comments? All right, any questions or comments from the public? Well, Brad, looks like you're getting off easy.
All right, Mayor, thank you.
So no questions?
And I apologize again for not being there in person with you all this evening.
All right, well, we'll get over it. All right. Thanks again. I appreciate your effort and everything that you're doing on this, and I appreciate you taking the time to keep us all informed.
Absolutely, and we'll speak again, I'm sure, tomorrow. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Okay, if there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I've got one question for our new officer. I didn't get your last name. What was your last name?
Rittenhouse?
Rittenhouse?
Yes, sir.
How'd you find Columbiana?
It's,
Columbiana's a little bit smaller than Dalton, Georgia.
it is. I was involved in the Explore program from the time that I was 14. Dalton, Georgia's Explore program participated with Shelby County quite a bit, so I was familiar with the area from my time there.
Okay. Good deal. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Good to see Officer Perry here tonight, too.
I wanna give a shout
Sergeant
out
Perry,
to
I'm
him.
all over.
I wanna give a shout out to him. You the one that does the traffic in the
He
afternoon for the
does,
kids.
he does.
Hey, I'm the one that blows. Hey, thank you. We really do appreciate it. We really do. I wanna let you know that I'm the one that blows.
He got on somebody the other day, I had to laugh at him, so it wasn't you though.
Yeah.
Okay. If no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second.
Okay.
Say somebody
Meeting's
second.